Okay. Thank you guys for staying around for the illustrious post-lunch conversations. So hopefully we will keep you awake. This is going to be an interesting conversation. So I'm Lindsay Watts. I'm the director of the Strategic Volunteerism Programs team at Hunger Free America. We connect individuals and groups to high-impact volunteer opportunities in their communities. We also have here Robert Lee, who is the co-founder and CEO of Rescuing Leftover Cuisine. I'll just give you a brief overview of the organization in case you're not familiar with them. Rescuing Leftover Cuisine is a national nonprofit food rescue organization operating across the United States and is headquartered in New York City that redistributes excess food to people experiencing food insecurity. In 2024 alone, Rescuing Leftover Cuisine rescued more than 5 million pounds of excess food across the country, serving more than 4.2 million meals to individuals experiencing homelessness and or food insecurity. The organization offers additional services such as wasted food consulting, tax credit assistance, and co-branding resources. Through this innovative and effective model, RLC pursues a world in which no food is wasted and hunger is eliminated. Thank you, Robert. We also have on the panel Zach Hall, who is the Senior Vice President of Programs at the Food Bank for New York City. The Food Bank for New York City is driven by their mission to empower every New Yorker to achieve food security for good. They harness the collective power of their network of food providers, partners, and volunteers to activate the right resources, support, and expertise across the 5 boroughs. Their work with over 800 soup kitchens, food pantries, and campus partners provides immediate and reliable access to food and nutrition education, while their economic empowerment programs give people the tools and the know-how to improve their financial wellness. Very excited to have you guys here on the panel today. So just to kind of introduce the topic, there's about 20,000 or so restaurants in New York City. There's about 1.4 million New Yorkers who are food insecure. What are some of the ways in which restaurants can support your organizations in donating food, donating money, and donating time through volunteerism? I'm going to start off, Robert.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here. Just as a way of quick introduction as well, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that restaurants can help. Personally, I grew up here in New York, actually in Queens, and honestly, it's a bit uncomfortable, but I grew up facing food insecurity. I honestly, grew up just sometimes eating one bowl of ramen, and that was it for the whole day. I honestly watched my parents skip meals just because they, were struggling. They were recent immigrants. They came here looking for a better life, and they just couldn't make it, and they struggled. Actually, ended up going back to Korea just about 5 years ago. So I grew up just thinking that everyone was going through that, and so when I went to kindergarten, I remember being shocked that kids would cut off the ends of their sandwiches, throw out their carrots and apples. I honestly would just rescue that, bring it home and eat it, and I think that in terms of restaurants and various food establishments across New York City, there's so many opportunities for restaurants as providers of food and obviously, handling food all the time to give back and to really, be a community player in this. And so truly what we do, I mean, we make the name super obvious, right? It's Rescuing Leftover Cuisine. And honestly, when I quit my job at JP Morgan in 2014 to do this full time, my boss just was like, you're quitting your job to do something illegal, right? And I was like, it's actually not illegal, which is why we try to make it so obvious, right? We try to make it super clear. And, to restaurants and, to various organizations that do give back and do participate in food rescue, we're truly, appreciative of, all the different groups. For example, Levant Bakery, Proper Food, they bake it into their model, right? Pret a Manger. They have it so that it's, made today, gone today, all this great marketing, branding for restaurants that are giving back and, supporting their local communities, their local food banks and homeless shelters, soup kitchens. And so we just try to make it as easy as possible. We try to make it so that restaurants like yourselves can just, whenever you're doing inventory or whenever you're closing out for the night, we just, come within a time window, whatever you guys tell us. And we're just, think of us as like a logistics, transportation company, just taking your, excess food that's edible, obviously, and taking it to people who need it at homeless shelters, soup kitchens, food pantries. And so, yeah, happy to go into more detail later on, but just wanted to kind of, answer that question. Also weave my personal story in there as well. But I'll pass it over to Zach.
Well, hats off to Robert. Way to put your own life experience to your mission use and passionate and sharing that story with us. And again, appreciate you being here. And thanks to Joel and Grubhub for hosting this at Hunger Free. And so at Food Bank for New York City, we work with, like you said, 800 plus food pantries, soup kitchens, schools, healthcare partners, colleges, basically anybody that sees people, that sees hungry folks. But we also work with various partners, including restaurants. And there's amazing ways that restaurants involve in our mission. They can volunteer. We have a plethora of volunteer opportunities where restaurant staff can get engaged in our mission. Advocacy is another really, really huge component of our work. We were having a policy discussion earlier. There's another ways that restaurants can be involved in helping advocate for policies that make sense for folks struggling with food insecurity. And of course, we need money to make the mission happen. Fuel in the tank. We partner with restaurants in a variety of ways to do this. So something simple as cause marketing campaigns in which folks can include a menu option or a meal specifically at your restaurant, and portions of the proceeds would go to Food Bank for New York City. We'd love to talk to you about that if that's something that's would be work for your restaurant. We understand that customers are really, really focused on loyalty these days and putting their social values into reality. And so that's another way that you can think about leveraging your brand and partnering with our mission. So we'd just love to talk a little bit more about that. But we have in-person direct food service location in Harlem that we run. It's rare for a food bank to have that, but it's something that we've been doing for 40 plus years. So we have meal services directly operated out of there, a food pantry. We also have a large warehouse in the Bronx, not the biggest food bank warehouse, but real estate in New York City is precious. But we're very, very efficient with what we do with our 90,000 square foot warehouse. But we take groups up there, and it's a great way for a team building exercise to repack product that we get donated or other ways in which we can put some labor to use. And we also, do all kinds of other mobile pantry events that we're doing directly, dropping, like you said, just-in-time food distribution and leveraging donations that may need to get turned around very, very quickly so we can put those out in the community. But there's a whole host of ways. We leverage thousands of volunteers every year to help our mission be possible.
Wonderful, thank you. And at Hunger Free America, Joel mentioned earlier, one of the unique things that we try and focus on is skill-based volunteerism. So, if you have chefs in your restaurant that want to utilize their skills, we can partner you with a local soup kitchen maybe who wants their menu reviewed, or who wants to look at, how they're utilizing food waste and things like that. Your restaurants have a lot of skills, and your staff have a lot of skills there that can really be beneficial to both soup kitchens and food pantries across the city. So what we do is kind of help connect businesses to opportunities, in their local areas, that we're able to be that kind of in-between person so that you can find opportunities to make a great impact on hunger. Just thinking in more specifics now, could you maybe provide like a specific example of a successful partnership that your organization has had with a restaurant? I know you have many restaurants that you partner with, but just be useful to give some specifics.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many different food dinner partners that we would love to shout out, and there's a running list. When we are headquartered here in New York City, and we're in different countries, cities as well, not countries, 9 different cities across the country. There are so many different groups like Levain Bakery, like I mentioned earlier, where we're in various locations, LA, Chicago, New York, Boston, with them, and all their locations donate their excess food. But I also mentioned Proper Food in San Francisco and New York City. But I also want to quickly, mention Bread's Bakery and in Between the Bread. Truly, a lot of different groups do various engagements. Bread's Bakery, for example, has a daily pickup with us and with all their locations in New York City. And as you can imagine, there's just a ton of bread. There's just tons and tons of bread, I think. Bagels and various kind of locations. But there's, for those that are kind of looking at, more of a weekly donation or even monthly donation, there are a lot of different food donor partners that we work with. They're not just doing it on a daily basis, which may become onerous, right? And so whatever schedule you want, you can totally go for. The way it works is essentially, as I mentioned earlier, you tell us the time range, our volunteers will show up. We have a technology-based kind of platform essentially where you can take a look and see who's going to show up, right? Because we had an issue like very early on where we saw like random people would show up pretending to be us. And so on our app, you can actually see a badge that is from RLC. You can actually see their name in case you have like a security system that you have to put them into and put their names in and everything. But essentially on that platform, you can also get your enhanced tax deductions, get all your receipts, get all your donation reports, see your carbon footprint impact as well. And try and get carbon credits if you can. Yeah, that's just one specific example of some of the partnerships we have with restaurants.
Great, wonderful.
Cool. Well, as a food bank, we also appreciate how restaurateurs and chefs understand the power of food, and we have many partnerships with chefs, but we launched a food series called Eat for Good, which enables some of the iconic chefs across the city to, prepare and partner with us to provide a dinner series that allows folks to see, iconic chefs paired up in action to create new and innovative opportunities for folks to try new foods as a fundraising mechanism and a brand mechanism for those chefs and restaurants as well. You mentioned our mission is to power every New Yorker to achieve food security for good, and this allows folks to pair talent with each other. And we have a partnership coming up. Our next series is, I'll have to read it because I don't have this memorized, but Stefano Secchi and Nando Chang at Masara. They're going to be blending Peruvian, Japanese, and Italian food in some new innovative ways. But it allows for folks to participate, taste some of what New York City has to offer, and then invest in our mission and get a really, really good meal out of it, which is always fun.
Awesome, thank you, great. What are some of the changes that you've seen in partnering with restaurants since COVID?
Man, COVID was a crazy time, right? I mean, when we first started, and actually, I probably should have mentioned this in the first question, but we got started specifically to fill a gap, right? We saw that great organizations like Food Bank of New York and City Harvest were rescuing amazing food, but because they were being efficient, they used trucks, which obviously you don't want to bring a truck into the city for like small, tiny amounts of food. And so there was a minimum pound requirement of 50 pounds. And so we filled that gap by working with the restaurants and food businesses that don't have 50 pounds of food to donate. So we saw a lot of restaurants that were partnering with us. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and all the restaurants had to close. And so we remember, like, for Pomfret, for example, we had, like, just a basement, like, tons, literally, like tons, like 2,000 pounds, like, multiple cases of potatoes just coming out of that basement. Like, it was never ending. And like we had BMW courtesy vehicles coming and like donating their time and like providing that transport for the potatoes. But I think it was just one of those time periods where we saw a huge, obviously, uptick in supply because all of this had to go somewhere. And then, of course, it completely dried up because there was no more supply. And so what we saw was there was so much need and so much, community kind of, need really, that we decided to kind of go up the supply chain. So we started working with food manufacturers and rescuing pallets and pallets of food instead of just working with restaurants and catering companies within office buildings. And so since the pandemic, after the pandemic ended and all restaurants started coming back, we've now kind of become more kind of able to do both, really, and we were able to kind of rescue more and more of the restaurants that were the core of our kind of start, but also start working with a lot of these companies that have tons and tons of excess food, like Frito-Lay's, Kind Snacks, and rescue all their excess in terms of obsolete inventory as well. So it's been an incredible change and evolution, but there's still so much that we need to do. So,
Yep. Yeah. Great. Zach?
Yeah, COVID is somewhat years past, but still front of mind for many of us. But food rescue is still top of mind for many organizations, including ours and Robert's, obviously. And we still take food donations directly from all kinds of different partners. But we're also developed some new partnerships over COVID as well. And Grubhub was one of those ones that really was deepened and helped us really establish more partnerships with delivery services. We saw the opportunities to explore ways in which roundup campaigns can really work for helping folks add to their cost of their meal and help go towards helping our mission as well. And Grubhub was a fantastic champion of that work. We're very, very appreciative of that and continue to partner with them on many, many ways. But we've also seen the sustaining of the need for COVID, like emergency food services. We've seen some of the inflationary costs of late, but also costs of goods is high for us too. We purchase food. We see the cost of eggs not on the shelf, but within our partner sourcing providers, and we see that the demand for our services is not dipped back prior to COVID experiences. So we know that this is still an ongoing high need time, and we're always very, very appreciative of all the partnerships we can develop, and love to see this group of people here committed to doing the same thing.
Great. Wonderful. Can you just talk in a little more detail about the process of donating food to your organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we only work with licensed food vendors just because we need to make sure that the food is safe and always, high quality. Once we partner with the food donor partner, we kind of do a little pilot period just to ensure that we understand what we're working with. In some cases, I remember, for example, we started working with Dig In, and they were, Dig now, I guess, and so they were telling us that they would have a certain amount of food, and it actually turned out to be in that first week pilot, it was actually like double, triple the amount of food. And so I think in a lot of cases, a lot of folks weren't really measuring how much excess they had, and so it was kind of just more estimates. But essentially, after receiving the information, getting the online form information about what times and dates and types of food you have, we do the pilot. And the pilot will also help figure out which nonprofit recipient is the best match. We have, it's not like AI or anything. It's just like an algorithm on our website that just helps match to the nearest place that needs the food. And so we're not going to match like dinner type of food to like a food pantry that only serves breakfast, for example, right? And so we essentially have that pilot week, ensure that the match is good, make sure that the food type is matching correctly. And then once the pilot is over, we can kind of publicly, put it on our website for a calendar for volunteers to sign up online and really tag along on our food rescue pickups and kind of see the issues firsthand, but also contribute to helping rescue the food. So that's the full process, but happy to answer more questions in more detail.
Great. Thank you.
Well, for us, there's large and small donations, and the first point of contact is within our food sourcing team. And they can help understand, for restaurants, businesses, manufacturers, suppliers, and so forth, what is a manageable size for us to either come get or be dropped off. And like Robert was saying, sometimes we'll also direct donations directly to some of our pantries and soup kitchens who are more efficiently poised to take that. But as a first point of contact, it was colleagues that are based out of our Bronx warehouse in Hunts Point. But also organizations can host a food drive either directly on their location. We still take cans and boxes and non-perishables as well, still critical to our work, and that's something that we repack and reconfigure and then ship right out back to our network of food providers. But also folks can raise meals online with host a virtual food drive on our website and be directing their customers and partners either within the business and so forth to, invest in some time and time-bound donations period. Very, very easy to do, incredibly powerful and poignant to see those numbers increase over time, and really, really helps us diversify who's involved in our mission, and also, of course, gives us the money to make it forward.
Great, wonderful. What are some of the ways, I know you've mentioned a little bit about some of the ways that people can volunteer with your organizations, if you want to just expand on that a little bit, Robert?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's several ways to volunteer. I think the number one kind of, easily accessible option is to just help us rescue food. And so on our website, there's a calendar where you essentially can choose a time, location. There's a map where you can find whatever is most convenient for you, and essentially rescue the food like physically. Outside of that, there's also opportunities to serve on our associate board. I think we have like a kitchen cabinet kind of thing with chefs as well, and of course serving on our board of directors. So obviously various levels of skill sets. And opportunities to get involved, but there's just so many ways to help, and honestly, we're very flexible and open as well in terms of, if you have ideas, definitely come to us, and we're happy to kind of, work together and figure it out.
Great.
Yeah, similarly, so I mentioned about, coming to our community kitchen in Harlem. You can help serve lunch to seniors of our senior day program or our community meal, which is open to the full community. No culinary experience required, but if you've got some of those skills, we would gladly put those to good use. I mentioned also coming to our repack at the warehouse, which could be group-based or individuals. Again, it's a great team-building activity. And we also we measure what we're doing, so we can say, oh, you guys packed 10,000 pounds of food, which is no small feat, but it's actually surprising what a group of people can do. We also have you mentioned skills-based volunteering. May shock you that there are some opportunities to help with SNAP enrollment assistance. So we do, similar to Hunger Free, we do outreach and application assistance, but we also help answer questions that are pretty easy for folks to answer with a little bit of training. So we have volunteers that help support our SNAP call center. You don't have to be an accountant or an expert in social service benefits provision. We'll take a chef too, or a line cook, or anybody else. But you're fully supported by our staff who are experts in this field, for decades. And then, like I said, mobile pantry events. We do other special events throughout the city, which are always fantastic to really see firsthand the folks you're helping. You're giving directly to folks one-on-one every day, and that's really helps push our mission. And then, of course, we can create volunteer opportunities as needed and as appropriate for anybody's organization or restaurant. But we just speak to us, and we can talk through any of the opportunities we'd love to work with you on.
Great, yeah, and likewise at Hunger Free America, we're more than happy to connect restaurants, whether it's skill-based or if they want to do like a group team building kind of activity to a local one of our local nonprofit partners. So please get in touch with any of our organizations. We would be more than happy to assist. So just kind of thinking about what are some of the benefits to restaurants to take action in the fight against hunger. I know, Robert, you've mentioned briefly about the sort of tax incentive of donating food. If you can kind of talk through that a little bit more maybe, and any of the other benefits that you see in restaurants engaging.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's understated how much benefits you can get as a food donor. I think, well, firstly, there's enhanced tax deductions. Well, it is quite a complicated calculation, and I totally understand that. And I think, it's kind of crazy, right? It's either like half your profit margin plus your basis cost, or twice your basis cost. And in a lot of cases, you don't even know what your basis cost is for the things that you're donating. And so, we're happy to kind of help with, itemizing and, helping you understand what you're actually donating, and have that detail into your portal and profile so you can get enhanced tax deductions. It really does depend on kind of how you're structured. So if you're LLC, obviously it'll just be flowing through to your 1040. And so we're happy to help you, do all that and figure out. I mean, obviously we're not like tax accountants or anything like that, but we're happy to like provide the information so that we can make it as easy as possible for you to get those enhanced tax deductions. Outside of that, there's also other benefits, right? You can get your food disposal costs decreased, right? So you're already paying monthly on a monthly basis for, let's say, a 2-yard or 4-yard or whatever it is. You can reduce that and have a smaller kind of footprint on your bottom line. But there's also like exciting marketing opportunities in my opinion. I think there's just a lot of ways to kind of describe to your customers what you're doing and what the benefit is to their own dollar votes of like buying food from a place that actually cares about the same things they care about, right? And I think that we could totally do once a year like a volunteer or all of our kind of supporters come and do a day or event at your location and things like that. So there's ways to not just reduce costs but also increase revenue, right? And then, of course, I think overall there's obviously the intangible benefits of building the brand and having the brand be associated with the green mission, like rescuing for Cuisine. But yeah, no, there's just so many different ways to kind of partner up and really mutually all benefit. And we're also happy to kind of brainstorm and work together with folks as well.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a really, really valid point there, Robert, on like the marketing aspect of it. According to a Nielsen report back from 2014, but I think it's probably even more so today, 2/3 of consumers prefer spending at businesses that give back. I mean, that's a pretty staggering number, and I'm sure a number that's probably increased since 2014. And also particularly from the younger consumer, that figure is even higher. Nearly half of millennials and younger would pay more for goods if they knew that it was for a business that was giving back, and that's one of the fastest growing markets of customers for New York City restaurants, that age group. So there's a huge opportunity there to really, amplify what restaurants are doing for the community, and then in return, hopefully increasing business to your restaurants. So that's a great point. Zach?
Yes, similarly, like the marketing stats are not lost on our marketing team by any stretch, and we know, that there's a big market here in New York City, but it's also jam-packed. And so for us, it's really, just doing what you said, socially conscious consumers, aligning with the brand. Our work touches 90% of the zip codes in New York City, so we are across all 5 boroughs. If you want an audience that has that kind of visibility, which is very, very valuable, to increase your brand visibility and, with new partners or new customers, positive press, marketing opportunities, and, co-branded, kind of content. I'd say the other kind of benefit of partnering with, to fight hunger is really thinking about kind of what we were talking about earlier, which is how folks are served on the ground. So we know that social service workers oftentimes are limited earnings jobs. And these are ways in which we see the value of folks getting the support they need for food, for SNAP, for other social needs, helps improve the financial stability of a household so that they can be more reliable employees within the food sector. And that's something that we see as, the really, really considerable aspect of our work, which is, oftentimes, restaurants and the kitchens are housing undocumented immigrants and so forth. And like, where do they go when they are in need of food? And they access food at our food pantries soup kitchens. But those are households that sometimes are periodically plagued by financial instability, and so those benefits across the board are really, really valuable in helping to stabilize a labor force that can help again undergird the restaurant, the food sector in our fair city, and making sure we have all the great restaurants that we can go and enjoy.
Great. Okay. I think we have a few minutes for questions for the panel, if anyone would like to ask anything.
I actually have a question, if that's okay. I was just wondering, I know businesses often worry about things like liability, and so I was just curious for restaurants who may want to donate food but are concerned because there's a lot of rules and regulations around preparing food and all that, so I'm just curious if you could share any information about restaurants who might want to participate but might be concerned about the regulations and liability or anything like that.
Absolutely. I think when we first started, we started actually literally printing out the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act of 1996 because people wouldn't believe us when we said that it was not illegal. But honestly, like I talk about this all the time, and I honestly think that even if it was illegal, I would still do it. Like there's so many things like civil rights movements where things were illegal that were nonsensical, right? Like this is nonsensical if like we feel just as strongly, I hope, about this, and so we should fight for this, right? And I think, but anyways, luckily it is legal, and federally there's the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act, but also on a state level, every single state has a state version of this Good Samaritan Act. And so we used to literally print it out and show people and make sure that people knew. But obviously we live in America, which is obviously very litigious. And so you can get sued for anything, right? Like even if there's no basis, you can still get sued. And so, we essentially try to risk mitigate as much as possible. So early on, honestly, a lot of our restaurants didn't want to be like publicly known that they were donating food. Like one time I went to a restaurant, this was like very early on when I was still doing the outreach myself. But like in front of customers, they just said, hey, we don't have any excess food. And then I gave my card, I was like, hey, if there's any excess food, just reach out to me. As soon as I left, he called me and he was like, I just didn't want to say that I had excess food in front of my customers, which I totally understand. And so, for that kind of risk mitigation reputationally, totally, we put codes. So it's not like publicly known that you're working with us, right? It's always anonymous, optional if you want to. But other types of risk mitigation, we carry a lot of insurance. We carry a lot of, other kind of ways to kind of mitigate that risk to ensure that you all are protected, right? Like this is something good that you want to try to do, and we understand that sometimes you're not always rewarded for that. But we can really try to, make this the universal standard and make this more commonplace by, working together and making this more of a habit. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
And just a few more explicit points. Under health code here in New York City and most other places, if the food is set out, you can't legally donate it. If the food's still in the kitchen, you can legally donate it, if it's perishable food. So any sandwiches here that were ready put out, we cannot legally donate. But if we told the caterer or whoever to hold back 50 in the kitchen, they could, number one. Number two, building upon that, and I worked in the federal government, we helped get the Bill Emerson Act passed, by the way, named after a then moderate Republican congressman from Missouri who supported anti-hunger programs. We miss that spirit. That we got, as Robert mentioned, every state also has a Good Samaritan law. And some are stronger than the federal government, some are weaker than the federal government. And we got a memo issued by the Department of Justice, I can still dig out somewhere, that said if the state law is stronger, the state law is in effect. If the federal law is stronger in your state, the federal law is in effect. And beyond that, you can sue for any reason. I've been doing this a few decades now, and I do not know of a single case where a donor was sued. So unless you get something that's, and there are exemptions for pure negligence. So if you get a box donated E. coli and you pass it on, you still could be liable, but I don't know if anyone's even sued. And so frankly, it's one of these urban myths that people don't want to do it because they get sued. It really is just, a non-issue.
It really doesn't happen, and Kim, a great question. For us at Food Bank, we have contracts with our food distribution organizations that allow for us as an organization that takes donations. We get government commodities contracted food that we also distribute, but we also purchase. So if a food supplier donates a truckload of cantaloupes to us, and some of them are bad, we have it as a part of our participation as a member that is not a actionable offense by anybody. We also have eyes and ears and nose and mouths, and we also do our due diligence to check. We have nutritionists on staff that look at our what's coming in and so forth. But it really has never happened. I've been at the food bank for 17 years. I have not heard of anything, but we do get all of the notices from the health department and notices around exposures or breaches or recalls, and we followed through with those. And of course, we would keep any of those products back if something came up as a donated product from a restaurant or any other supplier.
Great, thank you. Sure.
Regarding volunteerism, I can imagine schools or students or individuals called to ask if there's a volunteer opportunity. But my question is, do you have an established structure within your organizations for volunteerism? I would like to, add and kind of share your information with like the sororities and fraternities who are service-oriented
Absolutely.
organizations. So if you don't already have partnerships, I'd like to help
Sure,
start that.
we can chat in a minute,
Yeah.
but absolutely. So great question. We have a full volunteer team, multiple staff, but we have a mechanism online on our website. Volunteering is one of our pillars to go and select, and you can sign up and see all the different volunteer opportunities. Volunteers are vetted. And we, depending on where they're placed, will be, can be a group, could be individuals, but sororities, fraternities, religious orders, all very, very important parts of our volunteer community, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, same for us as well.
Yeah, and for us, we have a portal also on our website where you can search for opportunities. We also have like a group inquiry form if there's a group that wants to, do a particular activity. And all our contact information is on there as well if you wanted anything more specific or bespoke for your group.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring you the microphone.
Hi, this is both for Zach and Robert. So what has your experience been with the large QSRs, like the Chipotles of the world, and how do they feel about this? And I'm sure, because they deal with a ton of volume.
It's such a great question. Honestly, we work with Chipotle and a lot of different QSRs to do a lot of their training events when they open a location. They just go through a lot of just burritos and burrito bowls and just like fake orders, and then they donate all that to us, through us. I think in terms of long-standing kind of relationships of rescuing food every single day from their locations, we still haven't kind of figured out how to do that exactly. And I do think that presents a huge opportunity for us to really make this and push this forward to make food rescue more of the universal standard and not the exception. But yeah, absolutely. In our case, we hear a lot that it's logistically challenging for picking on Chipotle for a second. They just have a lot of different ingredients, and obviously there's a sneeze guard, so there's opportunities, and the food is hot held, and so as long as it's within the potentially hazardous food temperature danger zone and within the 4 hours, then it can still be donated. But in certain cases, I guess logistically for them, they just have so many items that they have to individually package the corn in like a different bag, the meat in a different bag, and so the costs for them to logistically do everything in the time it takes instead of just tossing it, packing everything, they're thinking that it would be too onerous. And so there's got to be a way for us to kind of meet in the middle somewhere. But yeah, no, right now it's still a challenge.
There's also a belief among some large institutions that if you have food waste, you're not a good manager. That was
Yep.
a problem under Mayor Giuliani, where he refused to allow New York City public schools to donate to City Harvest because they're not managing it right. When I worked in the federal government, I was dealing with the mess hall at the Naval Academy, and that was the higher ops. And just understanding is whether industry is so mature, whether you have a nice day or not. You know, the first nice day in March, people are eating outside, not in a restaurant, and there are just so many factors, whether the Knicks, you know, advance to another game in the series, that there's just so many things, there's no way restaurants can predict. But I think the mentality among some, particularly bigger entities, oh, you're a screw up if you have any food left over and no one wants to admit it.
I think it's a great point. I think for us, logistics are also always a concern, just like Robert's saying, and thinking about all of the different location pickup points is challenging, right? So, and we're sending trucks out to deliver food. We have some opportunities to pick up on the back end back to the warehouse, but it's not as always to the immediate needs of the corporate partner. But we've been working with Starbucks for a number of years, and we did crack the code. It did take some time, and Janice, you're here. I don't know if you have any other insights, but
The main thing is that they partnered with us, and then they provided a third-party logistics company to go and actually pick up the food. Because to Zach's point, and to your point too, Robert, it's difficult to go out to all the restaurants and pick up all the food with big trucks that we have at Food Bank.
I think it's thinking about this is an investment as well, right? Like we don't want a company to lose money on donating a product, but it's better to invest a little bit of money and not throw perfectly good food away when there's people, down the street or sometimes on your corner who could eat that. And so we can figure out how to work together, but it's a learning process on both sides. I think oftentimes people want a plumber to come in and fix their pipes. We're not a plumber, we're a partner. We want to make sure we can work together in just the same way as we're not a vendor, and I think that's important consideration for a corporate partner, to be eyes open, open-hearted, and thinking about what are the opportunities that this provides. Starbucks has been a fantastic partner for, I think, just since before COVID and ramped up crazy once COVID hit and still going strong.
Great, thank you. I just want to thank the panel here, Robert and Zach. Thank you so much for your time and your participation today. I think it was a really useful conversation for everyone. Hope you see some new connections out of today.